Mr. President, do you think it's realistic to continue payment of subsidy?
Why do you keep on hammering on subsidy? What do you understand by subsidy? Has anybody explained to you the meaning of subsidy? What did they say is subsidy? Is there any country, even in the US, there's subsidy on wheat products? Is there any country that does not subsidize living of people, even if it's by providing public transportation? Well, those are issues we are looking at. If you're a major, producer of crude, and you refine abroad, you carry the crude abroad and refine and bring it, definitely there will be difference in the price, and that's what they are paying. If your fathers establish a refinery and that refinery dies in your hands and you are now refining abroad, you ask yourself some questions. You have refineries, Kaduna, Warri, Sapele, Port Harcourt. Why are they not functioning? That we have to go and refine abroad. The transportation money, the refining cost at international price or rate, and we bring it back here. And the same government pays the difference in cost of what it is here and what it's internationally. That's the subsidy they are taking.
Hello, my wonderful people. Now welcome back again to Bod TV. But where we they analyze trends? Or we they analyze the thing where they happen for this government, for this our nation, Nigeria. Hey, we don't come again, no. This one, the thing they hot like fire. The thing, it be like what they put fire put. Hey, God, to be president, not be by motto, not be by campaign, no, not be by say, I want to help Nigeria in the best of my abilities. They say president, don't they sweat for, they sweat for her pit, don't they sweat for yacht, don't they remove that cap. Easy. Nigeria Wahala. Evil Buhari give up. You know how many people give up for Nigeria? They give up. Hey, to be a president of Nigeria, the people have to select. So that in case the thing over there, they go nothing and they put the person there. So if they not select you, if you enter a problem, a very big problem that you do. So if they use their hand to put you there, select you, put you there, if anything they go wrong, they go, they not go talk because they not say now they put you there. But if they not put you there, you can't do it. They not like. They go frustrate you. This is just the beginning for Tinubu. I pray, make it succeed though, because Nigeria problem, yeah. That is why when Buhari will come out, he say cattle and the sheep are easily controlled compared to Nigerians. But I never see anything though. See, I'm now APC, the party don't intervene. People should don't worry. Everything is under control. We are doing everything. Other party, they be our president, or the full party, they be our president. I the my president. Correct, sir. Don't be here. I go show all of that the video. They pay for grandy. I go show that the video. About the first subsidy. Hey, you see they go on and the matter is strong. Now, even the argument between the previous video I showed about Rufai and the colleague, hey, there be one fight though. He said, Rufai, I don't agree with you on this one. The removal of the subsidy was important, and this is the right time they should have done it. Hey, even journalists don't they fight their steps. We look on analyze, make it not take a person now. All right, guys, I will leave you now. This is Bod TV Bod. Please don't forget to subscribe, share our videos. I love you. Bye.
Government and the labor, and you have seen the labor union, the president of the NLC, the president of TUC, and all their executive members are here. And we've been deliberating on finding very, very amicable resolution to the issue at hand, to the queue and all of that, and the increase in pump price. And we had a very robust engagement. We cross-fertilized ideas. Ideas flew from all sides. And there's one thing that is remarkable, even from the labor side, and that is Nigeria. We are looking at the peace, progress, and stability of Nigeria. And that is what is paramount. Of course, the NNPC MD is here, Mr. Kyari. We cannot go into any details now because talks are still ongoing. We cannot finish everything at one sitting. So we have adjourned now. We are continuing the talks at a later date, very, very shortly. But the point is that talks are ongoing, and it's always better for all sides to keep talking with a view to arriving at a very amicable resolution that will be in the longer term interest of all Nigerians. That is as much as we can say now. Thank you very much. The meaning of deregulation is that it depends on the market force, on the price of crude of today. Tomorrow it could be different. If the price of crude goes up, you know what that means. If the price of crude internationally goes down, it reflects on the price. So it's not. Oh, we are trying to resolve the queues, and the labor, because necessarily labor unions will be agitated if there's any slight change in any price of any commodity, whether it's fuel, whether it's garri or bread. Labor will be agitated. That is what we are talking about. But in terms of pricing, you cannot control price when there is a deregulation. So there is a deregulation. The price you have today could go up tomorrow, could go down tomorrow. Don't forget. There will be interventions. We're not calling it palliative this around, but there will be interventions, at least so that the impact on the poorest of the poor in the society would be very minimal. That's part of the talks that are going on between government and labor.
So that has not been determined yet. Intervention.
That's part of the talks going on. And I did say that the talks are going on. We have adjourned today and we are meeting again to conclude. So all of those, the details and specifics of the interventions will then be reeled out when the meetings are over.
When is the next meeting?
Very, very short.
What was communicated to you as the outcome of the meeting? As far as labor is concerned, we didn't have a consensus in this meeting. Is that okay?
Are you still going to stand on the fact that they should actually go back to status quo? That's the principle of negotiation. You don't put the partner, ask him to negotiate under gunpoint.
What are the prayers of the NLC?
The prayers of NLC is that we go back to status quo, negotiate, think of alternatives, and all the effects and how to manage the effects this action is going to have on the people. If it is an action that must take off.
Does it mean restoration of subsidy?
Well, the subsidy provision has been made up to the end of June. And before then, conscious people, labor, management, government should be able to think of what will happen at the end of June. You don't start it before the time.
The original deadline
So why did they make provision up to end of June?
No, the original
Who's
deadline
lying?
was February 17th.
So why is it up to now?
That was at the discretion of the last administration.
Fine. The last administration made it up to end of June. Why can't we respect the sanctity of even that law that provided for that expenditure up to the end of June?
Okay, but is the NLC considerate with the federal government when they say that there's no fund, they can't fund all of this, they can't raise money to fund the subsidy?
What is the purpose of governance? What's the purpose of governance? Is it the duty of NLC to raise funds for the government, to collect tax, to sell crude at the international market when the price of crude is going high? And the government that is a major exporter of a crude product is telling him there's no money. Other countries that are in the same scenario are eating fat.
Mr. President, do you think it's realistic to continue payment of subsidy?
Why do you keep on hammering on subsidy? What do you understand by subsidy? Has anybody explained to you the meaning of subsidy? What did they say is subsidy? Is there any country, even in the US, there's subsidy on wheat products? Is there any country that does not subsidize living of people, even if it by providing public transportation? Well, those are issues we are looking at. If you're a major, producer of crude, and you refine abroad, you carry the crude abroad and refine and bring it, definitely there will be difference in the price, and that's what they are paying. If your fathers establish a refinery, and that refinery dies in your hands, and you are now refining abroad, you ask yourself some questions. We have refineries, Kaduna, Warri, Sapele, Port Harcourt. Why are they not functioning? That we have to go and refine abroad. The transportation money, the refining cost at international price or rate, and we bring it back here. And the same government pays the difference in cost of what it is here and what it's internationally. That's the subsidy they are telling you about.
But what happens if a government says they cannot do that?
You are still talking in the terms of in the state of dictatorship. What will happen if this is said? It's not all about conversation. It's not democratic way. You know, if you say this thing is happening this way and you are engaged in discussion, you know, if what happens there is take it or leave it, which you know doesn't have any space in the current dispensation. You know, it's all about the people. The people matter. You know, if they say, you know, this is the project you are bringing, you are removing subsidy, you have been spending money for this difference. Remember 2011, we were here, this compound, and we agreed on some principles, repair our refineries, you know, to start operation latest by December last year. They were not done. We agreed on issue of CNG. You know, the CNG product is eco-friendly and is cheaper than the PMS they're selling now. And some people say they can convert within 3 months. If we have done all these things, what will you be calling a subsidy? The Dangote refinery is there to be producing. If any of these refineries are producing, we won't have all this challenge we are having today. That's the language of labor. Now, will anybody increase their salary by 300% with what has happened now? This question is good. We'll come to the basics as of today. Transportation has gone beyond that. I don't know what they're paying you, but you cannot, you know, it's not enough for your transportation. That's what we are saying. It's not because there is any dogma on subsidy. No, but we should converse in a free environment and atmosphere and arrive. If we agree for a meeting by 2 today, and in the morning, you come out with price modulation. How can you fix price in a deregulated market? If you are talking of deregulation in the classical sense of it, it has to be determined by market forces. What I buy, I sell. But by the time you now dictate the prices, this amount. Now what is happening? Is that deregulation?
But that was just NNPC's price. They didn't dictate to other independent marketers.
So which other are the marketers?
We haven't seen other prices yet.
Which are the marketers? Which are the sole importers of this product? Who are the other marketers? So my colleague will have a lot to tell you guys.
You guys don't sound optimistic about this.
Yes, if you listen to the president during the inauguration at Eagle Square, he said that one of the hallmark of this administration is going to be dialogue, is going to be consultation, and that that this will be the hallmark, that they are not going to lord it over us, trying to paraphrase what he said, and not to be a dictator. So if you read it, it is clearly written there. And what has happened in terms of, as at today, has not shown what was written in his address. So all we've said before now was that, just as alluded to by my colleague as well, was that we ought to have sat down and have this conversation. At times it's difficult, before anything could have happened. We have been open to conversations. We started it in 2021, and somewhat part of 2022. But at the end of the day, they told us that they were not removing subsidy. So there was no conversation whatsoever. So for over a year, there wasn't formal engagements and formal meetings. And because there were informal engagements and meetings, that is why we found ourselves here today. If we had met before now, we could have proposed a lot of things. Just as the CNG has said, we have experts in our midst who could have proffered some solutions on even the CNG, how it could be done faster, what are the things that could be done. Because our own is, how do we protect the Nigerian workforce? So it is not about grandstanding, it is not, but it's just about how do we protect the workforce. So for us, clearly, we have stated in the meeting today that let's status quo ante remain, why we go back, have conversations with our principals, because the workers are clearly our principals. So we'll go back and have conversations with them. Then after the conversation, then we'll reconvene again and have some further discussion. But we hope that day as well, we reverse back to status quo ante.
Well, you were speaking with the federal government on the 800 million palliative. What was the conclusion about?
Yeah, so there is nothing that has been concluded. That is why we are reconvening. So there was nothing that was concluded. So that is why we will reconvene again.
So we'll still start buying fuel at the rate of 537.
You know, status quo ante. So when you go it, you get the meaning clearly. So.
Okay.
To go back to your state, as the chief executive, especially the area of the new fuel subsidy. So I would like to know the position of PGF over this. And secondly, sir, the party some few weeks ago decided on the zoning formula for the National Assembly. What is the position of PGF over this, sir?
Well, some of the things you said, I didn't hear the chairman say them, but however, as a forum, we are committed to the ideals of the government that is also our party, because the federal government belongs to APC. It's APC-led government. And everything that is contained in the manifesto of our great party during our campaigns are meant to be done and carried out. So on the issue of fuel subsidy, all the presidential candidates during the campaign all promised that they would remove fuel subsidy. The incumbent government, before he left, made us to know that fuel subsidy is no longer sustainable. What we are talking about now is implementation process, how to implement the program in a manner that it will not be too hard on the people. And I think the government is working on it. I have confidence on the ability of the president, the current president, to navigate through the waters and take decisions that will be to the best interest of our people and the country as a nation.
National Assembly leadership.
Well, I don't know the National Assembly leadership. Yes, sir. What do you want to know about it?
The party issued a consensus arrangement.
The president has not made proclamation for the National Assembly leadership to be inaugurated. And of course, you know, APC is the majority party. At the right time, the party will continue to convince and talk to stakeholders, so collectively the issue will be resolved.
Let me start by asking you whether you accept that Bola Tinubu is now constitutionally the president of Nigeria.
Well, I accept that we are in court questioning the validity of that pronunciation, and subject to the decision of the court, I will take a clue on how to answer that your question.
Right, but let me ask you, let me put it another way. Has there been a swivel towards Bola Tinubu in the Labour Party, an acceptance of the fact that he is now president and that what needs to be done now, pending the outcome of the legal challenges in court, is for the Labour Party to become, in the interim, a constructive opposition party and perhaps come up with a new model for opposition in this country? I mean, shadow ministers, etc., like you have it in the UK. I mean, I think you would make a great shadow attorney general, for example. I mean, is that kind of thing possible, or is the Labour Party too busy kind of tearing itself apart and wanting to tear other people apart?
Well, I want to tell you that we already have a very beautiful model which we placed before the Nigerian people and which they accepted. So we wouldn't need to have a new model. We have our model that we are going to implement at the appropriate time. You have seen the model which they promised you. They promised you renewed hope. But from the first day of inauguration, they gave you renewed hopelessness. So, but we promised Nigerians a new Nigeria that is free from the culture of impunity, criminality, corruption, and illegality. And we are going to maintain our focus on that promise, and at the appropriate time we will deliver.
Well, let me put it another way. Because obviously Mr. Tinubu is now the president of Nigeria, if he reaches out to Peter Obi and the Labour Party, and we understand he has this canny ability to mobilize people to his side of the fence, what do you think ought to be the reaction of Mr. Obi and the Labour Party to such an overture?
In law, you do not approbate and reprobate. You cannot be in court saying that this is an unconstitutional pronouncement, that a man who did not win an election is pronounced the winner, and begin to talk about an alliance. It is an unholy alliance, because you cannot be preaching this way and trying to accept another thing this way. That's the classical definition of being a hypocrite, and we are not that in Labour. So we are consistently maintaining our stand subject to the pronouncement of the court.
In that regard, I wonder what you make of the messages that he's pushed out so far and the optics of that in his inaugural speech. Were you inspired by it, or were you depressed by it?
I was a bit scandalized by it, because a statement was made to be an inaugural speech, and right there in the speech, you could see a man contradicting the exact thing he was saying. Well, I may not blame him. The statement was written for him, but his own utterances, which was not even in the text, ran exactly contrary to exact thing he was saying, meaning he was simply being a mouthpiece to somebody who wrote something. I said it during campaign that I am not moved by anything documented, because that may just be the work of some brilliant professors. I want to hear the candidates talk. I want them to be cross-examined. Let's hear what he will say. Now, let me move into why I said this. A man in his speech said, "We shall consult and dialogue and never dictate." And Piam, he issued the first dictate of his regime: fuel subsidy is gone.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but because our job is to try and interpret things as accurately as possible. If you interpret that, certainly the way that they are now explaining it, they're saying that he made a reference to the fact that subsidy is gone, but the reference was the fact that the previous government had only made allowance up till June in the budget. It wasn't him who did it. He was simply acknowledging that the subsidy is effectively gone. Would you concede that to him?
No, I would not. The statement he made was in May. The subsidy was to go by June. In politics, one day is enough to do the miracle or the damage. But what is the essence of you are saying in your inaugural speech that you are going to inflict more pain on the people? He said he was going to lead. Leadership is defined as the ability to influence people through inspiration, not intimidation or manipulation. That was a demonstration of arrogance of power, not humility of purpose. Now, when you are a leader, what is your purpose? Is it to inflict more pains on the people? No. And you have to be humble about it, especially when the problem emanated from the incompetence and dishonesty of leaders, not from the complicity of the people. Now, let me start by saying, so that you do not misinterpret me as ever supporting anything about oil fuel subsidy. If there is anything that irritates me to my bones, is the issue of subsidy. I wouldn't have voted for anybody who said he was going to maintain oil subsidy. And I'm very serious about that. What is the wisdom in an oil-producing country paying more than 7-point-something trillion to foreign countries to refine your oil and send it back to you? You paying their shipping line, you building their refineries abroad, when you have your 4 refineries already built.
So you support his move then?
No, listen to me.
Right.
I am saying that I hate everything about oil subsidy. And I agree with anybody who says it's fraudulent, it's criminal, and has no business in the first place in the Nigerian economy. Like I said.
Well, that's why he removed it.
No. We should be as careful in coming out of oil subsidy as we were careless in going into it. We displayed recklessness and carelessness going into it in the first place. So when you are coming out, you wouldn't be as careless as you were going in. So what I'm saying is when you want to remove it, there are two fundamental bases, and I talk now as an economist, that you must fulfill in order to make sure that you don't destroy the economy before building it post-oil subsidy. And the two basic econometrics that you must achieve: you must saturate the system with fuel, and you must ensure there is no monopoly. When you saturate the system with fuel, elementary economics will teach you that when supply is excess, it maintains a cap on the price. However, no matter how supply is entrenched, if there is monopoly, the monopoly through Shylock mentality of making profit can still manipulate the supply in order to make sure that the price gets haywire. I give you an example with OPEC. OPEC can throw its weight around. Even when the supply is there and they don't like the price, they simply cut the supply and the price will jack up. That is what is happening in Nigeria. You should factor it in. Some people have been feeding big on that general corrupt tendency of oil subsidy manipulation to fill in their pocket. So when you want to deal with such things, you have to be careful coming out. You don't need to pronounce it. Like I said, why I said it's a demonstration of arrogance of power. It's just you just want to tell people that as president, my word is law. Nothing else. Because the other regime has given you a leeway. What he said is unlawful. He said oil subsidy is gone. No. What he said is not true. He said there was no appropriation for what he knew in the budget for oil subsidy. No, there was. And it ought to end by June. If you end it today, that means the June allocation for oil subsidy will be dyed by some elements of criminal tendencies, because they would have jacked up the price before exhausting the subsidy, which is already a matter of law, which is already in the Appropriation Act. So there was everything wrong with that pronouncement. And it is anti-labor, it is anti-people, not because that I support oil subsidy, but because of the recklessness with which they are managing the exit of the oil subsidy.
Right. Well, the Labour Party did say during the campaign that it would end the subsidy regime. How would it have mitigated the risks?
When you have 51 pipes projected into your official pipe, taking the oil, you have 51 entities that are already corrupt that is going to mitigate against you. Labour say, we are going to cut corruption 50%, immediately will come in. We are going to increase the supply of the fuel, granting licenses to modular refineries. We are going to encourage Nigerians to participate freely in the product God has given to them free of charge. When we do that, and we would have done it within even a month, then we will take out oil subsidy, that irritation called oil subsidy. And let me tell you, there is already a model to that. Take the telecommunication industry as an example. When they came in, they did not encourage monopoly. NITEL was a monopoly organization, just as this government is erroneously allowing NMPC to be the only monopolist, meaning they can do any racketeering they want. When they want to give the license, they made sure they give to more than one. Econet and MTN, if I can remember. And immediately, telecommunication had checks and balance. But even the two was not enough. You know what MTN said? MTN said they cannot go into second per second billion until 10 years. And they were charging 50 naira per second of call. 2 years after that, they put in Glow. Glow started with second per second billing. And MTN found the technology that they couldn't find and immediately resorted to second billing. Today, despite all the hullabaloo going on in our environment economically, telecommunications price is still maintained and still stable. That is what would have happened to our oil. Some criminal leaders led us into oil subsidy that ought not to have been there. Dangote spent $19 billion to rebuild his refineries. And these people have spent more than that, and they could not repair their refineries. You can see the gap in criminality and corruption. That's what they would have taken out. And naturally, you wouldn't even need to talk about subsidy. Oil price will become lower than it is.
But technically, aren't we talking jumping the gun? Because yes, you may agree, and a number of people do, that perhaps he erred in the way that he said it.
As he always does.
But the fact remains that the subsidy is still there until the end of June. The fact remains that Dangote's refinery is due to come on stream at about that time. And therefore, the gap that you're talking about, the NNPC has told us that there's more than enough supply to stay, to cover that period of if there's any sort of lull or gap or whatever. So technically speaking, I mean, this artificial scarcity is simply being done by people who run fuel stations and all the rest of it, who are artificially jacking up their prices. I mean, there really is no reason for it, is there?
And that is why, as a leader, you would have factored that in. That was what I told you about the monopolist and the inevitability of racketeering in a corrupt society. You, as a leader, would have factored it in and not make that unguarded statement. You should have known that would be the result.
Right. Well, that statement has been made.
Yes.
What do you think should happen now?
Retract it. Go back. Say sorry. That was not what I meant.
Yeah, but they've tried to explain it.
Haven't you heard that a new price has already been issued? When you see talking about they are proceeding on the trajectory of their mistake because it's a demonstration of arrogance of power, I told you that. Not humility of purpose, which should be. A humble person will say, no. It's already a matter of law.
Right.
We do not intend, and there was no way I meant that subsidies removed. It's already a matter of law. It must face its way through June. But you see, that arrogance will not make them to have respect enough for the Nigerian people to quench their suffering. And that's why I said they don't inspire us, they intimidate and manipulate us. And that's not leadership.
Okay. Well, let me move away from that because we're fast running out of time. I want to get your summary of the state of play in the courts at the moment, the legal challenges as far as those are concerned. Obviously, you're a lawyer. You were in court today, obviously being circumspect, given that the case is active and the fact that you're one of the lawyers representing Peter Obi at the tribunal. So just give us a summary of where things are at the moment.
Oh, well, you know, we commenced the pre-hearing session from 8th of May, and by 30th of May, we commenced the actual hearing. The actual hearing commenced yesterday, where we produced fantastic witness, through which and through whom we tendered our evidence on the drug trafficking offense of the second respondent, who is Bola Tinubu. Then we tendered our evidence on the non-qualification of Bola Tinubu as a result of double nomination of Shetiba, which is there in black and white. As at 14th of August 2022, he held the Borno Central nomination candidacy of the senatorial election and the vice president
I
of
thought
Nigeria.
the Supreme Court had already decided that question.
Your thinking is absolutely wrong. The issue before the Supreme Court was an issue of pre-election matter. And when you say you don't have jurisdiction to entertain a matter because the party has no local standing, it means everything that is before the court, no matter how articulate it is dead. So, to my understanding as a lawyer, what the Supreme Court said was that PDP had no locus standi to challenge the pre-election matter in APC because it has to do with their primaries. That's why you use the word aspirant when you're talking about that. But let me talk about the obiter. Maybe a judge may have made an obiter. That's what we call it in law. His own opinion. Maybe saying something about writing to a party or something, you know. Excuse me. When you nominate a candidate, the nomination can only be valid when the list of candidates is published by INEC and released to the people. Then it's no longer a party thing. Is it not, I'm sorry to use the word, but I'm looking for a better word. Does it not disturb you for somebody to claim that mere writing to a political party makes you to have withdrawn? No. Until it gets to INEC, and INEC specifically strikes you out. In other words, you have withdrawn, because we're talking about candidacy. We're not talking about you aspiring to power. So the evidence we produced is to the fact that in INEC, which is the only commission that organizes the election, as at the 14th of that month, he held double nomination. And no evidence, for now, has been tendered to contradict that. So we are now in post-election matters, and you can distinguish it from the pre-election matters. We have the requisite locus standi because he challenged us in the general election. And when we adduce our evidence and take away their evidence during cross-examination, you may just see that we have complied with the law. And I am talking as a party to the suit, subject to the pronouncement of the court.
This is Bod TV Bod. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.